And welcome back to EDH Deck Building, and I am your host, Demo. Hello again, everybody. And this is my Q&A. I said last week when I did my happy anniversary video that I would do a little bit of a Q&A because I figured there'd probably be some questions in the comments about certain things, and I thought I would open it up to some of my more regular viewers who are actually interested in that kind of thing to ask questions of me, and I got a bunch. Obviously, I didn't get to them all. You know, I typically what I do is my videos come out at 9 a.m. where I live, and I like to sleep in, so I get up at like 10:30, 11, and then after my videos go live for a couple hours, then I go check the comments. Usually I grab my morning coffee, I go check the comments, try to respond to as many as I can, at least the ones where I'm actually being asked a question. You know, all the people that just want to talk about how great I am and how much they love my channel. I don't know if that requires a response, but thank you anyway. And in this case, I just, you know, that's all I think there's probably 400 comments on that video right now. So I didn't get to them all. A lot of them are a little bit overlapped. Like a lot of people ask the same question. So hopefully I'll hit a lot of people. I think I got 15, 16 questions here. So here we go. All right, Genesis said, what is a pet card that you find yourself putting into a lot of your decks despite you knowing it is a suboptimal choice? For example, you almost never find a black deck I build without Vampire Nighthawk, even though Vampire Scavenger has completely power crept it. Love your channel, by the way. Thanks for all the great content. So, man, I got a bunch. I got a bunch of pet cards. I think, you know, and I talk about them in my 10 cards videos. You know, these are cards that I could probably replace with a lot of other cards that I like them, so I play them. I just think they're interesting and unique. You would just have to look at, and you know, it's debatable whether or not, like Vampire Nighthawk, I think that's a great card, man. I don't know if it's suboptimal. Maybe Nighthawk Scavenger is better, sure. I think, though, that in a lot of cases, what is suboptimal is a little bit subjective. I think a lot of cards that pet cards that I would put in decks, my pet cards, I think, are good. You know, I put them in my decks because I think they're effective, whereas a lot of other people would think they're probably suboptimal. But, you know, again, that's just the way I build decks. So you could watch any of my 10 cards, pretty much every episode of my 10 cards videos, I talk about at least one card in that episode that I have in one of my decks. And I put it in there because I think it works great, even though maybe there's a better option. Don't care. I mean, I'm the guy who doesn't put Rhystic Study in decks, and I don't put Smothering Tithe in my decks anymore, and I don't put Soul Ring in my decks anymore. So I've replaced those cards with probably suboptimal choices because those cards are all super busted in the format. So there's a lot of that in my decks going on, a lot. And I'm going to actually do, and I've had a lot of questions about pet cards and my decks and all that. I'm going to do a updated my own personal decks video at some point, probably in the next little while here. Next up, Bomber Will said, thanks for your work. Started as a 10 cards only viewer, but got to appreciate all the content later. Question, why did you upgrade your personal paper decks before now? Why did I, or how did I? The funny thing is, the question, I'm not sure what that question exactly is getting at, but I'll just say about my paper decks, since I started, I actually haven't upgraded them in forever. Because I wasn't playing Paper Magic. I already talked about this before, how I actually just started playing Spell Table with my patrons, and I'm sort of rushing. I'm ordering cards off of TCG Player like crazy because I'm like, I haven't upgraded my decks forever. You know, I was busy with my channel, and I wasn't playing Paper Magic at all. So there was really, I sort of pushed it to the wayside. So now, because I'm playing these decks IRL, as they say, I have to quickly try to upgrade them and order all these cards because all the cards that I'm like, this is the best cards from Strixhaven, and that was like 8 months ago, and I still don't have any of those actual cards yet. So it's kind of funny. How do you manage to keep a reasonable deck collection? I just can't see the end of Commander. I want to try to brew, build, then play, but don't have that much time nor budget. Any tips? Okay, so two things. One, you can split between digital and paper, and that's what I do. I don't actually have my patron just asked me this the other day, and again, this plays into the first question about me not really updating my paper decks. I took a lot apart. My 28 deck text video, I have maybe 10 of those decks. I only have 8 paper decks right now. That's it, just 8. Like I said, I'm updating. I got to put a lot of stuff together. I've taken a lot of decks apart. So I take decks apart because I try to keep a reasonable amount of decks, and I think 20 is a pretty reasonable number. 28's too many, but a lot of those decks were digital. So a lot of the decks right now, I make them digital, and I think I talked about this in a video recently. I make a digital deck, I play it digitally to see if I like it and if it's going to stick, because I'm super picky and I get tired of decks really easily. So I'm always taking my decks apart. So I want to make sure I like it before I really invest in all of those cards, right? So all my decks go from digital to paper eventually if I like them, right? And then once they're in paper, usually I keep them for, but that being said, I've taken a lot of my paper decks apart in the last year. Mostly because of this channel, I think. I ended up making a lot more decks than I usually do because of this channel. I talked about my Diochan deck, which I am putting together in paper, which I probably never would have touched that commander had it not been for my channel, because I did it on my Underwhelming Commanders video, and I'm like, hey, this is actually a cool idea. So I decided to do that deck myself. So, and I ended up taking my Zerzoth deck apart. So there's, as an example. Next up, Jeffrey Warburg says, do you think the ban list needs a revision, either adding or removing a card? I have a ban and commander video. It's a little old. I might revisit it because there's a lot that I have to say about that. I am on the side, I would say ultimately, to answer this question quickly, because I'll probably do a whole video about this. To answer this question quickly, I am on the side of unbanning cards over banning cards. As of right now, I don't think there's any cards I can think of that I would ban. As always, I am more on the side of have two different formats, a CEDH and a casual. They're different names for a reason. We call them different things. When someone says, let's go play a game of CEDH, they're talking about a specific way of playing. They're talking about a specific group of cards that you're going to use that you're not going to use in casual. What is that called? That's called a different format. That already is a different format. So if we're going to have a different thing called CEDH, then why not have a different ban list? That would be the one thing that I'm a big proponent of. But I am going to make a ban list video, a revisit one. I actually really like the one I made before, but I think it needs to be revisited. Next up, Marcelo Mora. Nice to see you. I have one question. Do you play two-headed giant games in Commander? I always see you talking in a 1v1v1 perspective, but not in a 2v2, which is more like me and my friends play. Yeah, I don't. I've never played two-headed giant. So, well, that's a lie. Maybe I did way back in the day, but no, my commander is always a free-for-all, and yeah, you would have to build your deck completely different, right? You would have to build your deck. Yeah, you would really have to build you have to do it more the battle bond way, right? How those battle bond things are, you can use cards that help your teammate. You really would have to build your deck completely different. The free-for-all aspect in a commander game really plays a lot into my deck building choices, for sure. You look at a card like Ghostly Prison, for example. Ghostly Prison's a fantastic card in a commander game, and the reason why it's so good is because my opponent doesn't want to bother paying the 2 to attack me, so I just save myself from getting hit. On top of that, they're going to end up attacking someone else because they want to attack somebody, so they're going to attack someone else. So now I just saved myself from getting attacked, and my other opponent end up losing life. So it's a double bonus, and that is because of that free-for-all aspect, and you're not going to get that in a 2. How does a Ghostly Prison work in a 2? It only works on you, right? Maybe not. I don't know. I'm not sure. Does a Ghostly Prison only work on you? I think it does, right? So in a two-headed giant game, a Ghostly Prison is not going to be nearly as good because they're just going to attack your teammate, right? Or does the Ghostly Prison work on both of you? I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on it. But it's definitely a completely different deck building strategy that yeah, I would have to revamp everything in order to do that. All right, John Perseo, happy anniversary. Watch your Underwhelming Commander videos and 10 cards videos religiously. Rewatched a few for ideas. Min is probably going to be my next build. Really powerful effect. I completely overlooked it at first. How do you playtest online? I use Xmage. A lot of people have asked that. I like it. I use it mostly just for playtesting. I think for me, I'm all about someone should be able to playtest a deck. I think to me that's fair. Before they actually run out and spend hundreds of dollars on cards, you should be able to playtest a deck, I think. And I have to playtest the decks for my channel as well to see if they're viable. What is your goals as a channel? Gameplay would be great. I'm working on it. What is your favorite archetype in EDH? Why? How difficult is making only? Oh man, that's a lot of questions. Okay, I'll go through these quickly. What are your goals as a channel? Just man, I just love talking about Magic. I love building decks. I like gameplay, so I just want to do all of that. I want to do having just discussions about Magic like this. I like so videos like that, doing gameplay, and then recommending cards people don't know, doing deck decks. I want to do it all, and if I can do it for a living, obviously that's going to be great. So I can just concentrate on this and nothing else. How difficult is making your 10 cards videos? They are, I shouldn't even say this, they're my easiest videos to make. My hardest videos to make are my underwhelming commanders videos because I'm doing essentially 3 deck techs all at once. I have to upload the deck list, I have to make a poll, and I have to, my underwhelming commanders videos are the most work. Other than specific videos like the most popular sets, the most popular colors where I have to compile a bunch of data, that's a lot of those videos specifically. But my regular videos, my underwhelming commander videos are a lot of work. And my 10 cards videos are the least amount of work and get me the most views. So I guess that's, but I want to keep it diverse. I don't want to just do that, right? People will get sick of it. So yeah, my 10 cards videos are easy. Doing the research for those is easy. I love looking at old cards. I just love analyzing cards in general, finding new interesting ways to use them, and making the actual editing process, the recording and editing part is not difficult either. So yeah, especially after this long, you can have many janky enchantments lined up, right? One of these days you should make a janky enchantment deck to run all of the weird enchantments you've uncovered. Yeah, I did the red enchantments video just because I found red really seems to have a lot of those. I might do a blue one because blue seems to have a lot of those really janky enchantments as well. All right, moving on. JEVB, can you play us a song on your guitar? So just a quick little, I had a lot of comments about my background, which is no big surprise. This background I made for my, this is the exact setup that I use for my Patreon. So when I started making videos on my Patreon with my face, which I started doing way back in April, this backdrop, this is actually a blanket you see here. And yes, it is made of old band t-shirts. My wife took all my old band t-shirts and that I didn't wear anymore. And some of them you can tell I wore a lot more than others, and turned it into a blanket. It was a Christmas present like 5 years ago, and I don't actually use it as a blanket. I just hung it on the wall just so that when I made my Patreon videos, my patrons weren't staring at a blank wall. And then of course the guitar as well. And yes, I am a metalhead. If anyone recognizes any of the bands, I'm a big metalhead. I'm actually wearing my Homer t-shirt with the devil horns here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm a huge Simpsons fan as well. Simpsons t-shirts and metal t-shirts. And then the guitar, that's an Ibanez. I won't geek out on guitar stuff. I actually have another Ibanez right over here. I got 2 of them hanging on the wall. I got an acoustic as well. I'm not going to play a song, but take it off the, yeah. So there's my guitar. And I don't have a pick, but yeah. I have it in drop C right now, so which doesn't, it's not plugged into an amp. I don't want to get too much into the guitar thing, but for anyone who knows what drop C is, because a lot of metal is played in drop C, so anybody who plays guitar will know what I'm talking about there. And it's an electric guitar, so if I don't plug it into an amp, it's gonna sound like crap, right? So anyway, maybe someday I'll play you guys a song. I don't know. I want to keep my channel Magic related. That's what it's about, right? But I was expecting a few questions about sort of my backdrop there and my setup. This is what my office looks like, right? I have my guitar hanging there because I play guitar in this room. It's my guitar room. It's my man cave, right? All right, next question. Oscar Patton. I built your Vadiel doll deck and put my own spin on it. It is one of my favorite decks to this day. Yeah, I put this one in here. This is not a question. I put this one in here because this really goes to what my channel is all about. I would much rather, like every deck, especially in Commander, it should be your own. You should really make it your own. So I would, the deck list that I post, and I never posted deck lists in the beginning. I didn't want people to just copy paste my decks and then go out there and play them. You really should make it your own. Because especially in Commander, that's really important. You take that idea and then, make it your own, right? Like I do with my Underwhelming Commanders videos. The first 2 are just rundowns where I give you, here's what I would do. Here's some cards that work good with this Commander. Fill in the rest yourself. Whatever ramp you like, whatever removal you like to play, whatever other pet cards you like to put. And that's the whole deck, right? Your lands, obviously. Make it your own. Take my ideas, do your own spin on it, and make it your own. Next up, Evan Smolin. Love the content. I'm excited to see where you take the channel. For the Q&A, any regular viewers knows you're a white aligned player. Okay, but what guild and wedge shard do you align with? Yeah, I had a couple questions like this as well. So yeah, if I was to pick a mono color, I would go with white. Two color, white and green. My very first deck I ever made in Magic was white and green, and I was of the opinion, the guy who taught me how to play Magic made me think that that's how you played. You picked two colors, and everyone played two color decks. My best friend who also made a deck, his was Dimir. That's why I always hated Dimir. His was blue and black, mine was white and green, and of course they oppose each other. A wedge or a shard? Oh man, like I actually currently have 0 wedge or shard decks. 0. All my decks are 1 or 2 color. I've really been going in that direction. However, I really like Bant, I really like Teamer, and I really like Abzan. Yeah, those 3 are probably my favorites. So, next up, Cage and Non. I'm happy to see you get the traction you deserve, so happy anniversary. Quick question, what was it that made Trailassar unfun, uninteresting for you? Just wondering, since she is my favorite from this year's overabundance. Yeah, I think he means overabundance of great commanders. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. I like the versatility of she's gaining life, she's putting counters on herself, she's scrying, so you can do all 3 of those things in the deck. The end of the day, though, I'm making a big creature. My commander's big, and I'm going to smack you with it, which is, almost Voltron-y. I don't love Voltron. Yeah, I don't know. And like I just said, white-green is my favorite color combination. I already have 2 white-green decks that played into it a bit. I like to limit myself to no more than 2 decks per color combination. That's just the way I am. I don't want to be doing the same stuff and playing the same cards all the time, right? If all your decks are white and green, then you're going to be playing all the same cards all the time, mostly, right? And I like to keep it versatile as much as I can. All right, next up, Mr. Mad Mac. In my opinion, your channel is the best. Hey, that's not a question. How did that get in there? All right, moving on. Balu78. Keep it up, man. You have an awesome POV about EDH. Highly entertaining and some of my favorite content. I always recommend your channel and look forward to what you do next. Would love to know, what are some other channels you watch, recommend? This is another question I got a few of, and I actually have a patron ask me this. So when I started out, I'm going to try to keep this as quick as possible. This could be a long story. When I first started getting into Commander, and this is what I recommend to everybody, okay? If you know how to play Magic and want to play Commander, my recommendation is go watch gameplay. Watch tons and tons and tons of gameplay to see how it works, to see the cards that are played. I started out watching Commander Versus. I watched every single episode of Commander Versus. At the time, they didn't have that many. When I first started playing, I think they had about 12 or 15 episodes or something. I watched them all right, because it gave me a feel for how the format worked. It's very different than 60 card formats, which is what I was used to, right? The multiplayer aspect, right? I saw cards like Solemn Simulacrum, which I had never seen in really, Coalition Relic, Rhystic Study, all these cards that I had never seen in other formats, I'm seeing all over the place, and I'm like, there's cards, and that's what I love about Commander. Here's cards that you don't see anywhere else that you're seeing in this format. So Commander Versus, I definitely watched a ton. Haven't in a long time, though. After I got a feel for the format, there wasn't a whole lot of point of watching that. Game nights also. Game nights had just started. I watched the Command Zone in the beginning when they were just a podcast, and you didn't even see their face. It was just Jimmy and Josh talking, and once in a while, there'd be like a swirly background, and once in a while they'd put a card up on the screen that they were talking about. That was it. So I was watching that way back then. So those were the two. Those were really the only two back then. There wasn't really a whole lot more. And then they started doing game nights, and so I watched some of that. And so, and when everyone talks about what casual Commander's supposed to be, go watch Commander Versus games. Go watch game nights games, right? Those are the ones that people watch. Those are the kind of games that I play, right? That's what the feel I got for the format, and that's what I expect out of a casual game, is the games that they play. That's the games that I play are similar. So, other than that, I don't watch much. I watch a little bit of Mitch on Commander's Quarters from time to time. He kills it in spoiler season, especially, man. He's sort of the spoiler guy now. He just crushes everybody else. He puts out like 4 videos a day in spoiler season, and they all get like 50,000 views. So that's why my views go way down during spoiler season. When a new set comes out, I'm almost like, oh, here we go. I take a bit of a hit because I think everyone's watching his channel. I mean, everyone watches his channel already. He's pretty good. He's very in a similar mindset, and I think a lot of people have said he's in a similar mindset to what I am. Other than that, I don't watch a lot. I watch the MTG Goldfish, and I just mentioned this in my Stifle versus Swords video, and I've watched a few of theirs now. It's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic to see 4 guys with differing opinions talk about what they think of certain cards. So I like that as well. Next up, Joe. I started watching your videos last week. I am so glad to be part of this community now. Glad to be here for the 1-year celebration. Question: what is the commander you feel needs to be printed, a niche you want filled that doesn't have a commander for? Personally, I'd like to have 2-color energy commander. Great idea. Alternate resources tend to be a lot of fun. What do I think is a niche that needs to be printed? You have to check out my own creation cards, and I will put the link to my MTG Cardsmith in the link below, and you can go check out all the cards. I haven't in a long time, too busy with my channel, but I got a whole bunch of really interesting commanders there. You can go check them out. A lot of them are niches that need to be filled, and some of them are just interesting commanders. Haven't made any for a long while. I used to put those cards on my channel. I don't anymore, and I won't get into why. It was more of a headache than anything. But I'll put the link to my MTG Cardsmith account, and you guys can go check out all the cards that I have on there. Math Magician, have you changed your mind about Crosan Grip? If not, you're still wrong. So thought it was funny to add this one. I don't know if he's joking here or not. Have I changed my mind about Crosan Grip? No, I have it in 0 decks currently. Like I said, 3 mana to destroy an artifact or enchantment is awful, and everyone agrees with that. I don't think anybody would argue that. The split second, I don't think is worth it. Again, if you're in a play group where people are countering all the time, or they really like Sensei's Divining Top, or they really like maybe Aetherflux Reservoir, you can get that Aetherflux Reservoir if they don't use it right away. Other than that, like Crosan Grip was the Sensei's Divining Top destroyer when I first started playing. Everyone was playing top, and that was the only way to get a top off the table was with Crosan Grip, and that's why it became really popular in the format. And then it doesn't get countered. People realized you couldn't counter it, so people started using it for that. That doesn't come up for me. It doesn't come up for me hardly ever. So, no, I don't use Crosan Grip. I think it's a good card. It's a commander staple, no question. Use it if you think it's good in your pod or something. For me, I have it in 0 decks. So, Bean Pot, happy anniversary. When you start building a deck, do you usually start with a commander theme or some random card you want to build around? Great question. If you watch my real-time deck building video, which I am going to do another one soon, I talk about this a little bit. There's 3 ways that I build a deck. There's a really cool commander that I want to build around, so I start with my commander. Number 2, there's a real cool theme I want to build around. Okay, so I want to make a cycling deck, or I want to make an ETB deck, or I want to make a clue token deck, right? That's what I did with my Adrix and Nev deck, where I thought it would make a good clue token commander, and I've always wanted to make a clue token commander. Of course, there's a whole bunch more for that now. So that's the other one. So it's a commander I want to build around, a theme I want to make, and then I choose a commander that fits that theme. The third one, which is very unique to me, is color combination. And like I said, I restrict myself on color combination. I always like to have at least one deck of each monocolor, which I do currently. Like currently, I have no Izzet decks, and I'm waiting. I'm just waiting for that Izzet commander there's just something about Izzet that I just can't. I made a Zara deck recently, didn't love it. I gave that one away on my happy anniversary video. I haven't found an Izzet commander that really tickles my deck building bone. I guess, I don't know what you want to say. That sounded kind of weird, but yeah, so when an Izzet commander comes out that I really like, I'll go after it, because color combination actually matters to me. And lastly, Hitor Tremura. I probably butchered that. Anyway, excited to see the channel grow, and I'm glad to be a fan. You bring up so many cards that are actually interesting without completely focusing on how competitive they can be. I look forward to more content. You got it, buddy. I got lots more to come. Edit. I watched more of the video and you asked for questions, so here you go. It's funny, I always find it interesting, this is completely not magic related at all, how people will, as soon as they click on a video, will comment right away before watching it. I find that very interesting. I mean, people can do whatever they want. I just find it interesting that people comment before you actually watch the video. Because I see this edit. I actually watched the video. Now I have something different to say. How do you do power level discussions before games? There's a distinction between CEDH and EDH. Is there? Is there a distinction? I mean, there is, but again, watch my is it casual? That video, which I did a long time ago, is very relevant still, right? Let's play is it casual for Commander, and I talk about a whole bunch of cards like Mana Crypt, Dual Lands, Necropotence, Force of Will. Do you want to see that in a casual game? Yes or no? There's a little bit of a distinction, but how much of a distinction is there really? We don't really know, right? That's why, again, I like to have just different formats. But everyone seems to have the divide at a different location, and it can sometimes lead to games where one person brings a deck that's much more powerful than the others, but they don't realize until partway through the game. How often do you play with people who aren't your familiar Commander group? I do it all the time. In fact, I did it exclusively. I don't have a Commander group, so that's all I do. Now I do it with patrons, which is sort of like having a pod, but that's all I did. That's why I have those videos. What format are we playing? Is it casual? What I talk about in my Band and Commander video, all those videos, the 5 worst plays video, which I did a long time ago, which was one of my first videos that got a lot of views and certainly a lot of comments. Those videos are from playing with random people online. That's where my opinion is generated from. My opinion about cards and what's casual and what's not is generated from playing with random people from all over the world online, hundreds and hundreds of games. That's where I form this opinion from. And again, like I say, go look at my video, is it casual for Commander, and look at the comments, okay? Because that video is more asking the question. Go read the comments and see the completely differing views. I say it all the time about, you'll have one guy who'll say, of course dual lands are casual. That's ridiculous to think they're not. And then the very next comment will be, of course dual lands aren't casual. That's ridiculous to think they're like completely opposing views in the exact, like these are all people that are playing the same format, but yet have completely differing views, right? As far as the power level thing goes, yeah, I had this discussion with my patrons the other day. It's completely up in the air. My deck's a 7. What does that mean? I think the Command Zone did a video about this, about how, a precon is like 5 or something like that. An upgraded precon is a 6. But what's an upgraded precon? Is an upgraded precon, I put Rhystic Study, Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, Force of Will in my precon. Is that an upgraded precon, right? Is that still a 6? Probably not. The power level thing is completely up in the air. And like I say, when you play a game online and someone says power level 5 to 8, okay, a 5 and an 8 in the same game. For me, a 5 and an 8 are in a completely different stratosphere. Like they're not close to. 8 is almost CEDH, right? 8 is, again, I'm going to be playing Force of Will, Necropotence, probably a Mana Crypt, stuff like that, right? Basically, an 8 for me is I'm playing a CEDH. I'm playing CEDH level power of cards without actually playing a CEDH deck, right? Because a CEDH deck is typically, I have that instant win combo off sort of scenario, right? So really, really powerful deck. And a 5 is a precon. So you're going to play an 8 with a 5? That doesn't, no. For me, and again, the power levels for me are, you have to be within 1 or it's pointless. 7s and 8s can play together. 5s and 6s can play together. 6s and 7s can play together. Once you go farther than that, then what's the point of even having the power level discussion if you're that far apart? And again, it's completely subjective, right? Some guy will be like, yeah, my deck's a 7. You sit down with him with your 6 and you start playing and you realize pretty quickly he's got Mana Crypt, Force of Will, whatever, Necropotence, and you'll be like, hey, like, and in your opinion, that's not a 7, it's actually an 8. What are you going to do, right? And I mean, it's very easy for people to lie, especially when you're playing online. If someone says, I want power level 5 to 7, and someone shows up with their 8, and they're like, well, I think it's a 7, right? It's just, it's helpful, but very limited in how helpful it is to have that power level discussion, in my opinion. What can you do? This is having pods, having play groups is always going to be the easiest way. Rule 0, all this kind of stuff is always going to fix these situations to mostly a degree, although I will say everyone's like, oh, just talk to your pod. The problem is you can get outvoted. You can have a 3-1. You might want to play a janky deck that is really goofy and the rest of your pod doesn't. So what do you do then? quit and go find another pod. That's not always an option either. So the rule zero thing is not always a solution either. I've had lots of people tell me, I'd love to play these kinds of janky decks, but my pod doesn't want to. My pod all plays super powerful cards, so I can't do it. I lose every single game, right? So that's not a solution either. Is the online thing the solution? Maybe the format will move towards more people playing on Spell Table, where you can find, like, join my Patreon, everybody, because if you want to play decks like I play and not necessarily janky, but fun, interesting decks that you can still win with, all my patrons obviously are the people that are in that same boat as I am, that want to play those kinds of decks. In the beginning, I will say, on my Patreon, I started doing my deck doctors, and there was a lot of guys on there with really high-powered decks. If you watch my my deck doctor video that I did on my actual channel, where I did a patron video, that guy's no longer a patron of mine. He left pretty quickly because I think he realized that his idea of what casual is and mine didn't mesh, right? And if you watch that video, you'll see he had Force of Will and Pact the Negation, all these really powerful cards. And I was like, you're making a Phoenix mill deck. Those two things to me don't go together. If you're going to play in a super powerful pod like that, I don't think you should be playing a Phoenix mill deck. That seems like a very casual commander and a very casual strategy. So I actually think I lost some patrons because in the beginning, I think they thought they were in the same boat as me, but they weren't. And I ended up getting more patrons that, so if you come play on my Patreon, and I've had a few games on Spell Table now where, yeah, I don't have any issues like that. On a patron of mine, an old school guy that's been around for a long time, threw a Craw Giant down the other day, and that's a card I remember cracking in packs back in the day. And he could easily take that Craw Giant out and put in something a lot more powerful, but he doesn't want to. He wants to play with a Craw Giant, right? So that's the kind of stuff that's happening, in the Spell Table games on my Patreon. So maybe if you're looking for that kind of thing, my Patreon is the way to go. My Discord, right? So check it out if you want to, but that's it. Answered as many questions as I can. I hope I spit out a lot of information there, right? So I think you guys mostly got what you were looking for. And I like doing this kind of stuff. Again, I don't think a ton of people are going to watch this video, but it's for the people that are really interested in this kind of stuff and the people that are very regular viewers of mine and big fans of what I am doing. So that is it for today. And thanks for tuning in.